My camera is on.
Oh.
Tell me all about Bret.
Bret's 28. He is the greatest little boy, or big boy, that you can imagine. Sweet, loves people, calm, not aggressive, just a sweet young man. We love him. We consider ourselves lucky to have him as part of our family for sure. What's up, bud? Oh my goodness. Yeah, he drools some, but that's okay. Bret's nonverbal, but he does let us know what he wants by making different sounds.
Tell me all about Bret.
Oh, have you got a couple of days?
I do.
He's really a pretty simple kind of guy. He likes simple things, walk in the park, ride in the car. We seem to agree about everything we talk about. He never tells me I talk too much.
What is Bret's diagnosis?
Believe it or not, Bret does not have a diagnosis. We have done every testing under the sun, and nothing's ever shown anything. And that was something that was very hard for us to grasp. We figured if you're sick, you have a diagnosis, and then you know what to do about it. But we've come to find out that some people don't get diagnosed, and we just do the best we can for him. If something's hurting or we see something pop up, we'll figure it out, but no diagnosis.
As you can imagine, it was stressful. We were looking for answers all the time. We were traveling to find new doctors to just tell us something. And finally, someone gave us the advice of just live your life. He is who he is, and there's not a pill that's going to change him. And so when we finally accepted that, we calmed down a little bit. We were kind of always up in the air and searching for something. And then we finally realized it is what it is, and we'll just go with it. We'll just go with the flow.
What was it like to go without a diagnosis this whole life?
At the beginning, it was very rough because, again, we were looking for kind of a plan to tell us what to do when you have the flu, what do you do? Or when you have a cold, what do you do? And we had no guidelines whatsoever. A lot of the doctors said, they just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Bret never fit in a certain box. And that was something we had to learn to deal with. He's always got something outside the box. So it took us a while to find doctors that would listen to us and think outside the box.
When did you first start to realize that he had something going on?
When he was about, actually like 2 months old, I'm the one who would call the pediatrician and say, my baby's sleeping all the time, he never cries, he's not hungry. It's like the perfect child. But of course, I knew better since he was our third. And then at 5 months, we went to the neurologist, and all the neurologist could tell us is that he had weak muscle tone, which we could tell, and he wanted us to start PT. So ever since 5 months, Bret's been in physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. He's not in it anymore, but we were in it for many, many, many years.
Tell me all about your brother, Bret.
Yeah, so Bret is my little brother. He's 28 and I'm 34. He's really shaped my entire life. I work in special education because of him.
Tell me about Bret's relationship with his sister.
Oh, I'll tell you. So his sister is a special ed supervisor now. She's, of course, loved Bret, ever since he was born. And in 3rd grade, she was so proud of Bret, she took him for show and tell one day. So in 3rd grade, I bring Bret in his wheelchair, and Rachel had gathered up his AFOs, braces that he wore on his legs, his special toys, and brought everything to show and tell. That's the greatest memory. She was so proud of him, and always is.
Specifically, I feel like I have strength in working with students with more intensive disabilities. Growing up, I got to see him have some wonderful teachers, and I wanted to be able to give other students the same love and respect that he was given.
What would you say makes a teacher a great teacher when working with students like Bret?
Just being open-minded and loving. As you know, being a former teacher, we do some things that some people might look at you like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I think that makes the best teacher. You do things, you think out of the box.
How long did you search for a diagnosis before realizing that it probably wasn't going to happen?
Yeah, probably a good 12 to 15 years. people would send us news articles, magazine articles. Look at this. Does this sound familiar? And for a while there, we did a lot of things we thought would help. Special medicines, cannabis oil, hyperbaric chamber. I was ready to move to Florida with him for 2 months to do the hyperbaric chamber, and then we realized it wasn't going to work for him. So after about 12 or 15 years, we've just settled down, and that's our life.
Yeah, we just felt like there must be something we can do that will make him more typical. Because at first he seemed typical, and then about a week after he was born, we couldn't wake him up, and we ended up in the hospital. They did a spinal tap, did all kinds of tests. They said he's fine, but it seemed like after that he did not develop typically like our other children had.
How would you describe the level of care that Bret requires?
Bret requires a lot of care. It's pretty much 24/7. A lot of it is because we need to watch him in case he has a seizure. We need to make sure he's safe. He is incontinent. We have to feed him. We do all his daily living skills for him, which means putting him on the toilet or changing his diaper if necessary, washing him up in the morning, dressing him. And as you can see, he's in a wheelchair, so we move him to and from the wheelchair, to his bed maybe, or to the toilet. He's about 70% toilet trained, so we go with that. And we're proud of that, though. We're proud of that. He sticks his legs out when he needs to use the restroom, so that's the way he communicates to us, and right away we rush to the bathroom, and he usually uses it.
How are you able to make sure that Bret has all the care that he requires while still taking care of your own health?
That's a great question. We are very lucky to have a wonderful caregiver who's been with us for 10 years, who cares for Bret like he is her own son.
How are you grinding back there? Feeling a little better?
What is it like being Bret's caregiver?
I love it. Bret is very, very sweet.
So she relieves me and my husband a lot. We're able to do what we want to do or what we feel like we need to do for our other 2 children also, and go visit our grandchildren and things like that. Before we had our caregiver, our focus was mainly Bret all the time. We didn't have much help. I didn't really trust anyone to take care of him.
As his caregiver, what do you help him with?
Oh, pretty much everything, from getting him out of bed, getting him dressed, taking him out, feeding him. I pretty do help him with everything.
It wears you out. It would wear anybody out, 24/7 to watch after someone, feed them, change them, wash them, and we would read books. We found things to do, but it did exhaust us.
If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice when Bret was first born, what would you say?
Go to therapy, go to family therapy. We did that because we weren't sure what to do, and it was very stressful. And I think having the ability to talk through it with a third party is pretty important. And I would advise that to anyone that has either a child with special needs or family members that are going through difficult times.
What type of improvements did you see in your life after you started family therapy?
My anxiety level went down. I slept better at night. My marriage got so much better. It was great before, and as we were married now for coming up on 42 years next month, we're that much more comfortable with each other. So I think he's helped our family tremendously. Right, buddy?
What is it like not knowing your brother's diagnosis?
It's hard. Having my own kids. It's a little nerve-wracking because I didn't know if Bret, if I could have passed on whatever happened to Bret and my own children. So that's been really nerve-wracking for me.
How many children do you have?
1, I just had my first baby.
And I just met her. She seems to be doing well. What was it like for you when she was born healthy?
Wild. Because Bret's my little brother, I never watched a sibling grow up neurotypically. So Lennon, my little girl, is 8 weeks and she holds her head up for a few seconds. I'm like, wow, that is so cool, you know, or she'll look at me and I'm like, wow, that is so neat. She's looking at me. You know, so I'm obviously checking those milestones very carefully, but it was very daunting being pregnant with her. Just worried, you know, what if I do this? What if I do this? You know, knowledge is power to a point. But for people like us, like you two, you work with a community of people, you see the positive and negatives that can happen. And that was really hard.
There's no diagnosis, but do you mind listing his symptoms?
Sure. When people ask me what he has, I'll tell them he has cerebral palsy, epilepsy, developmental delay. Basically, that's it. Although his brain scans are pretty good. They're fine. He does have epilepsy. Since he was 9 years old, he started having seizures. And the eating part came around 10 years ago when he just stopped eating by mouth. So we had to get the feeding tube, which I really didn't want to do that because I thought that was like giving up. But there was no way we could get his medicines in without a feeding tube, and now we're real grateful for it. Because when he doesn't feel well, he doesn't want to eat, but at least we can get medicines in.
I mean, everybody that I introduced Bret to just fall in love with him. Even my family, my kids, my husband, I mean, everybody. He's just so sweet, and he just, yeah.
What does a normal day look like for you and Bret?
Oh man, every day we do something different. Like on Mondays, we go to the library and we go out for lunch. On Tuesdays, we have music and lunch again, or we're probably gonna go to the park. Well, we haven't been to the park lately because it's been so hot. But I take him to the mall, we go bowling, we go to the aquarium, we just be doing a lot of stuff. You know, we stay busy, definitely stay busy.
Does Bret have a type of music that he prefers?
Oh man, he loves the Beatles. He loves Elvis Presley. I mean, every now and then I switch it up a little bit and he'll listen to a little country. Don't we love you? Yeah.
When he was younger and in school and therapies, are there certain things you made a lot of progress in?
Honestly, not really. He went to a private preschool when he was 18 months for about a year and a half, and we loved it. And when they first met him, they said, we're going to get him walking. And, you know, I believed it, but they couldn't. And we've tried, all the schools have been great, and all the therapies have been great. We've had lots of equipment and tried a whole lot of things. He really did not progress that much. Once he realized that he wanted to walk or go somewhere, he was a little bit older, maybe 12, and his hips became displaced, both hips, so he really couldn't even walk at that point. He used to crawl a lot, and that was great because he could crawl and get what he wanted. Therapies weren't the greatest for us. We tried everything. We tried it over and over.
When you two were younger, was there a point where you believed that he would speak, and did you have to eventually accept that he was not speaking?
Yes. So when we were young, we didn't, you know, because he's undiagnosed, we didn't know. Every day you don't know. You don't know. Is he going to walk? Is he going to crawl? What's going to happen? And I used to try to practice with him speaking, and I would ask my mom for certain things and say, well, if Bret asks you if I can have something, can I have it? And she would say, absolutely. If Bret tells me that you need something, you can have it. So that was a big thing. I would try to coach him to be verbal and speak and ask for things on my behalf.
Is there anything society can do to be more inclusive of Bret?
Yes, there are many things. I think that I understand how fortunate we are that we're able to care for him in our home, and there are many families that are not as fortunate. And I'm sure Angie would agree with me when I say that we sure would like to see more funding for caregivers. To spend 24/7 with any child, whether they have special needs or not, is difficult. And then you're constantly tube feeding or taking care of seizures or running to the hospital for whatever. He's had several surgeries. It's all encompassing, and you can't even sleep. We have a monitor in our room, and that light is shining in our eyes all night. When I would like to see more families have more help, caregivers, respite care. So I think that's something that society, that's why we pay taxes, so that people can have a decent life.
Pretty. He is the sweetest boy ever. Wherever we go, he'll just hold my hands and we'll hold hands, whether we're watching a movie, whether we're bowling, it doesn't matter what we're doing, he'll reach to hold my hands. And I just love it. I love it. I really do. He is the sweetest boy.
How does Bret communicate his love?
Holding hands. Are you going to hold my hand now? Yeah, he'll hold hands. And sometimes he will get right next to me in bed or something and put his head on my lap intentionally, and that's the best. I never want to get out of his bed when he does that. Yeah, so he holds hands a lot, and he likes that.
It's amazing. So many of our friends keep in touch with us, and the first thing they do is ask about Bret. My dearest friend happens to be a doctor, and I've known him since we were in third grade, so 58 years. He's the head surgeon at the local hospital. He's a busy man, and every day on his way home, he calls to see if there's anything he can do for us. And so I think that impact, Bret has had an impact on him and his family. His daughter is now a nurse. His son is a doctor. I think he's had an incredible impact on many of our friends. Unfortunately, not all of our friends, but many of our friends, and those are the people we stay really close with.
Like, I love getting out of bed and come work with Bret. Like, I would literally, I've been looking forward to that. So yes, it's just something I love to do.
What's
so
the
that
best
keeps
thing?
me going.
What's the best thing about it?
The best thing about it is Bret. Isn't it lovely? He's just so sweet. I just love working with him. Like, I just love it. And yeah, taking care of him. I love taking care of him and loving him. Like, handsome.
Whether it's Bret or students I'm working with, you never say something in front of them that you wouldn't say to them. Just because they're nonverbal we don't know what he understands or doesn't understand. And I think that's something that people really, as a whole, need to work on. You don't speak about someone in front of them, assuming that they don't understand you. Because you wouldn't do it to someone who's neurotypical and verbal. So why do it to someone who's not?
I hope if you have a child similar to Bret, you can love them as much as we do. Not every day's sunshine, I can say that. Believe me, we have bad days, but we get up the next day and keep moving. We've got Bret, and Bret is Bret, and we love him the way he is.
When somebody meets Bret for the first time, or hears your family's story for the first time, what do you hope they think?
I hope they realize that it's not the end of life as we know it, that good things come from everything. I want people to know that our life didn't end when Bret came to us, it got better.